Hey, welcome back to Her Restored Spirit podcast. My name is Tammy and I'm your host. And I'm coming to you today from a hotel room where I am by myself because I just dropped off my kids at camp in Colorado, where they go every year. They have a great time doing all the camping things. It's interesting because there are things about the camp that they don't like. I mean, my son thinks hiking is really, um, well, he says it's pointless. You just walk to a random point and decide to turn around and go back. I was like, well, it's about the view. It's about the experience. It's about you're going with your mentors and with the group that you've been hiking with for years. I was like, it's about more than just the hike. Like, it's about pushing yourself to your limits. And he's like, what? He's like, it's walking up a mountain with a backpack that's as heavy as you are, and you can't breathe very well. What's fun about that? He goes every year. He loves it. Well, if he would prepare for it, I mean, we live in Oklahoma. We live at sea level, and he's getting ready to go to Colorado Rockies and hike for 5 days. So yeah, maybe he should have trained a little bit. He's 15. There's a treadmill. We have walking paths. I would walk with you. Don't get me started there. I'll share about that another time. But I wanted to share. So today I'm in process of driving back home. It's an 11-hour drive. I drove it in 2 days. I didn't want to do an 11-hour day by myself. And so this morning I got up and I'm going to take a leisurely day. I'm going to share a little bit. Had some technical difficulties. The podcast I recorded was not saved and I can't find it and Zoom can't find it. So, well, I guess I get to record it again. And I just wanted to share some of my perspective, some of my thoughts, because there's so many times that people will ask me why I focus so much on identity. Why? Because it's not, I mean, we're supposed to die to self, right? As a Christian, we're supposed to become more and more like Christ and less like the world. And I agree with those statements. And I believe that we all have an impact. I believe that even in our homes, us women are called to impact our children, impact our children's friends, impact their community around us, we have circles, we have ripple effect, and we can impact those around us by just being who we are. And one of the things that I'm known for is that I speak openly about my grief journey and the grief journey of my children. Granted, one day, maybe I'll see them when they're ready. I mean, they're 15 and 13, sharing their perspective of the grief journey. I did record with my daughter a few years ago, and it was for her. It was not something that she wanted shared. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just keep this for us. But I openly talk about my grief journey, about how losing my husband, it sent my life on a trajectory. And I also talk about how our stories are not limited by the things that happen to us. It did change my life. It shifted, it shaped losing my husband, losing my mom. There's grief throughout my life, the loss. That part of being in the military is moving every couple of years. And so you have that, and that's pre-social media. So for you youngins who are listening to this, know that we did not have Facebook where we can keep in contact. Like you were done unless you happened to have their address. But the thing is with military is you move, they move, and it can be last minute. It can be, so you never know. So you could get a returned letter and lose them forever. Many of those people I have the privilege of connecting with again because of social media. But even in high school, like we didn't have a way of really connecting and staying in contact with people. So that loss of those experiences and those friendships and that connection, the loss of your culture and your environment every time you moved, every time I moved, it was a different experience. There's a lot of blessings in there too, which that's for another podcast. But one of the things that I really wanted to share with you is I get these comments about, isn't it selfish to focus on yourself? To my answer, that is no. And this is why. Because when we know that if we don't review, if we don't study history, it will repeat itself, right? If we don't look at the decisions that are made, the experiences you had, the things that are going on in your life and in the world, let's stick with the history. It's bound to happen again. So we study history in order to change our future. And I believe that it's something similar when we study ourselves, when we understand, when we see, because I don't believe I don't believe that anything happens to us for without reason or by coincidence or by accident. Now we have choices, and so though we may not be on the direct path that God gave us, nothing is a surprise to him. He's with us. He redeems our steps. He restores us. He's with us every moment. And again, he knows it all. He knows where we're going to fall short, and he knows where he's going to catch us. So by looking at our preferences, our desires, our skills, our strengths, our weaknesses, our fears, knowing us will help us see how God created us, will help us get to a point where we can see that something that comes so easy to us doesn't come easy to other people. God will start highlighting for us what our calling is, what our purpose is, how to use our circumstances. I use the circumstances that I've been through to help other women. The change, the fact that I embrace change, the fact that I don't have regrets. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with a coach friend of mine today, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but not really, is we talked about, and I know I've shared before about how I don't have regrets, that everything is used for good, that everything can be redeemed, that if regrets is a way of just like losing your future, like recognizing, give yourself grace, release the shame and the guilt of the decision because you made the best decision you could. Even if it was a poor decision, there was a reason driving that decision. But when you know better, you do better. When you have more information, you can grow. And so we were talking about it, and I was like, the one regret I would really have in life is if I did not follow God's plan. If I was not connected to, and if I was not obedient, and he gave someone else the assignment that he meant for me, I would regret that. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, is because I feel like I am in obedience with what God has for me. One of the reasons why I've kind of shifted out of when I started, I was kind of a grief coach, but I realized that we give grief too much power. It is so important that we experience grief, and none of us can escape it. No one can escape grief. And if you can, that means because you're not living, you're not loving, you're not experiencing life, because you can have a grief with a loss of a season, even when you recognize that, like, you hold your baby for the last time, like, you don't know with that moment where that my daughter went from baby to toddler. Then all of a sudden you're carrying your toddler and you realize that you have that moment, I don't have a baby anymore. She'll always be my baby, but she's not a baby. She's a toddler. She's got to grow. And so we have these grief seasons. Grief is not something that we can escape. But so many of us give it too much room in our lives. We center grief, put the grief in the center. We even replace God and our faith with the grief. And we disguise it as in the we loved well, we grieve well, or we are stuck here. This is my lot in life. We disguise it as, and we use it as a way to protect ourselves from being hurt again. And really, we are already being hurt again because our God wants the best for us. He has plans for each of us. And he talks about that he has numbered the hairs on our head. He numbers our days. He knows what's in our future. And when we stay focused on our grief moment, and I say this knowing that I have worked through, grief will always be part of my life. The love I have for my husband is not something I'm ever willing to give up. I see my husband and both my kids, and genetics is weird. They will say something like he would have said it. And they'd never heard him say it. They would have never, like, they were 2 and 4 when he died. So it's not something like it's a memory that they have, but they will say things exactly how. So genetics are weird. And it's a gift because it reminds me that he lived. It reminds me that he's still part of our life, and he lives on through Isaac and Lindis. He lives on through the impact that I am willing to make. He lives on, and his life had purpose because of the people that he impacted. He had such a huge opportunity. He was an instructor pilot, so he got to see it, in the Air Force. It's such a big military, but it's so small. And he got to impact people in his short 31 years of life because of who he was, because he knew his strengths, because he made an impact with his actions. He's still making an impact today because my kids and I have chosen to not allow the sadness of the grief to hold us back, to allow that story to define us. It shaped us, but it does not define us. The impact that we have, and I watch my daughter and my son, and I see, like, I don't know exactly what God has planned for them. I don't. I wish that I did. And there's a whole gang of motorcycles right outside the door that are getting ready to take off. So if you hear that, I'm sorry. I left my AirPods, so I'm using the mic on my computer. We roll with the punches. I was so ready to get the kids to camp that I literally packed in less than 15 minutes, and the AirPods are charging nicely by my computer at home. Anyway, back to impact. And the thing is that we give grief so much power. We allow it to hold us. And again, with grief, think of the things that you've lost, things that you hold on to from the past that you need to release. You can hold in your hand open. Like, you cannot add if you have closed fists. If you open your palms, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the open palms that I have. Like, you can add, you can hold, you can carry more. When you have tight fits and nothing can get in and you're stuck, of course you're feeling stuck. And of course, the impact that you desire, because I believe that God's placed that in our hearts. I believe that's like a little glimpse of heaven. We're called to share and connect. And if we stay in our grief, if we stay, and I started this talking about why it's so important to know us. On my grief journey, I wanted to know why things bothered me more than others, why I couldn't let this thing go, but this was so easy, why I made the decisions that I made, and why it came so naturally and some came so difficult. And so that's why I studied the Enneagram. That's why I did neuro coaching. That's why, and learning that the more I understood myself through the lens of how God made me, my impact, my confidence, I understood my fears more, and I can recognize them faster. They still get me. I still have to actively work through them. I can find my confidence, because confidence is something that you gain from doing it. Like, you find your confidence as you act. But if you don't know, and we can serve, I've so many people serve and pour out and are so exhausted from serving because it is not aligned with their gifts. It is not aligned with their strengths. It's not aligned with who God called them to be. It is avoiding the way God made them. So that's why I talk about this. That's why that this is so important to me, that you don't have regrets, that you don't lose the future you have simply because you are tight-fisted and you're so afraid of acting because you don't want to hurt anymore. Well, you're hurting yourself by not experiencing life. You're hurting yourself and the people around you who need you to get healthy, who need you. They need your impact because of the gifts that God's given you that complement their gifts or compensate for their weaknesses. I have so many friends who I am in awe of their gifts. I was talking with one this past weekend she is the epitome of elegance. She is and it comes so easy. Like, she's like, oh, I just threw this together. Or she just is. It's just her essence. It comes easy to her. And she's the nicest person in the world. Nicest person. And it's just like, I went out to have, girls' night with her. And I asked my friend, I'm like, yeah, do you think I brought an outfit for girls' night with her? And she's like, well, of course not. But you can't hate her because she's amazing. I'm like, I know. It was a great night, but getting to see, because something that was so easy for her, she didn't even see it as a strength. It's just who she is. Each of you have something that is so easy for you that you discredit it, that it's something the rest of us need. Her tips and tricks for, fashion and home decor and just how she carries herself, it's needed. What is it that comes so easy to you? But if you hold on to your circumstances, and if you hold on and you choose to not dive in to see who you were called to be, that's when regrets happen. That's when we don't live a full life. And that's when it breaks my heart. And that's why I do what I do, because I don't want you to stand there. I don't want you to have these amazing gifts and not make an impact. If you are called to make it, if you feel that, it doesn't have to be a giant. You don't have to get on stage. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to public speak, but you do have to. And look at how God created you. And how can you use those gifts? I don't want you to regret. And if you are a Christian, if you are a Bible believing Jesus follower, you know that we're called to bring the message to the world. How do you do that? Is it through crafts? Do you make pretty things that make people happy? Is it through encouragement? Do you have words that people need to hear that you're embarrassed to tell them because you don't want to seem like preachy, or you don't want to offend people, or you don't want to think you're weird because you've noticed something about them? Is it out of food and hospitality? Is it out of your working with your hands? Do you build things? Is it out of prayer and saying, hey, like, I know that I have a gift of prayer. How can I use this? If you don't look at your gifts, if you don't look at your fears and your experiences and you don't take time to discover who you are, you miss out. And it's sometimes you struggle because you want to do more and you try different things, but none of it feels, it's all work. It's all work. You want to stay comfortable, which is a whole nother podcast. But this is why. So this is why I do what I do. This is why I talk about impact and about identity, because, and why it's not a selfish thing. Because I believe you have impact. I believe that you have a life that others need in theirs. And if you hold on, if you have closed fists and you are afraid, which we all have fears, if you don't know where they're coming from, you don't know your core motivations, then of course you're going to stay in that. But you don't have to, because there's help, because we don't have to do this alone, because you can contact me and we can talk. And seriously, like, getting on a call with me, 20 minutes, let's just find your next step. Okay. If you don't want to work with a coach, if you're not ready for that yet, it's okay. But if you don't take the first step, and the first step is the hardest, the first step of saying yes to yourself. If you don't take that first step and you tell yourself no, we build a wall, and it is harder and harder and harder to move that wall, to push it aside, to break through it, to take that first step in obedience. If you know that where you are, that you have an impact to make, that there's something more for you, that you feel numb, or you feel like you're managing your life and you know that God's called me to more, DM me at Tammy Marie Coaching, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Email me, tammy@tammymariecoaching.com. Get on my calendar. In the show notes, I will put a link to get on a call and 20 minutes to get your personalized next step. Join my membership. Now, I know I've talked about the membership. I haven't told you the purpose of it. And part of that was intentional. Part of it was, as I'm just getting the clarity, God told me to do it, so I was doing it. And now I figure out what is the purpose. And it's to give you a place to start making those small steps to see what's possible, because we're not used to saying yes to ourselves. We're used to saying yes to helping everyone around us. And that's good. And we're allowed to say no so we can say yes to other things. The purpose of this membership is to help you start to pull away those things that you're not. Start to look at how God created you, so that what impact do you have already, and how can you grow that impact? This month, we are actually Thursday this week, I believe it's on the 13th at 3 p.m. Central, we're going to talk about what motivates us. So many times I need motivation. I wish I had motivation. If you don't know what motivates you, you don't know what to look for. You can't intentionally motivate yourself. So we're going to step back from that. Here's 5 ways to get motivation, to what motivates you. You want to know that? You want to know what motivates you? And even so you can help your husband and your friends and your kids and the people around you find motivation? Come to the workshop. Join the membership. As a bonus, right now, there's a founding members, and I put it through the end of the month. It is at $37 a month. At the end of the month, it is going to $77 a month. And I'm doing that because I want you in the membership. I want you, because when you say yes to yourself, which is saying yes to who God created you to be, you make an impact. When you make an impact, and I make an impact, and Sarah makes an impact, and Julie makes an impact, the impact that we make magnifies. This world is hurting for faith-led women to be empowered enough to know themselves so they can make an impact, so we can bring the gospel to the world. so we can bring it to our communities, so we can bring it to our families, so we can bring it to our relationships, so we can bring it to us, and we can allow God to redeem us and restore us. But restoration is not where we stop. Join my membership. When you do that, you're going to get first glimpse at my group that is starting. I'm doing another round of going deeper. We're going deeper. We're going to discover who we are and what our purpose is. Who did God create us to be? How does our brain work with that? It's a proven step. Like, there is a curriculum, there is a process that I walk you through on this journey. Walk you through. It's not a watch videos and do the homework. It is a sit down with a group of women who are all saying yes to themselves, committed to saying yes to God. Discovering why we do what we do. What are our fears? Finding this motivation, and how do we motivate ourselves when it's hard? We take it to what are our strengths, and how do we find connections that compensate for our weaknesses? And all of that is where we're going to take this, and we're going to make an impact. And you get to do it in a way that aligns with who God created you to be. So please join the membership. If you're interested in the group, it starts we're in July, mid-August. I know that it's crazy time because school will be starting again and all of that. We'll work through it. I promise you, it's not hard. We do it together. Okay, I'm going to go because I got to get on the road and drive home and enjoy my week without children. And I can't wait to talk to you again next week. Friend, choose joy. Choose joy until joy chooses you. Bye for now.